Hello, my name is Naomi Richardson, and welcome to another episode of the Power Chat series titled Curation and Education. My guest today is Crystal Palmer, the Curator of Education at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Detroit. Crystal has almost a decade of experience in the field of art and education and is a sculpture artist who graduated from Wayne State with a BFA in 2013. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having
Of
me.
course.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm good. Just finished finals.
Yes. Okay. Excellent.
Um, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Of course.
Yeah.
So, like Naomi said, I work at MoCAD, Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit. I've been there for 3 years, and it's always exciting to be in this position where you're constantly thinking about your audience. What can your audience take away? What could youngsters learn from being in a museum setting? And then working with a lot of very current and contemporary artists is just really fruitful. So yeah, if you haven't been to our museum, you should definitely come check it out. We are located in the center of Midtown.
Yes, come check it out. That's my favorite place. Okay, so art as a technique has been used throughout history to tell the stories of marginalized communities. How do you view art as a mechanism in the different communities and cultures you're a part of?
I think it's quite a very powerful mechanism that can be used to speak volumes about maybe your lived experience, maybe commenting on someone else's. But I love it as a means for conversation to happen. Um, Even if you go into a museum and you're looking at artwork, there is going to be something that you can take away. There is going to be some ideas that carry over when you return home or maybe at your next activity, whatever it is you might be doing. But I think that moment of reflection that happens when you're looking at artwork, it can really take your mind to different places. So I personally love it as a means to share ideas. And just like you said, that mechanism, I really find it very helpful to understand what the artist is experiencing when I look at their artwork.
Yeah, so I think self-reflection is like one of the key points in like just when like an artist creates art for individuals and for audiences to look at, it's for the individual.
Absolutely. Because you could stand there and read the didactic text that the museum or perhaps art gallery puts together. However, you're the one that's having that relationship with that artwork, no
Yes.
matter for how long or how short. And perhaps maybe you don't even have to digest the artist's intent. But I feel like if there's any bit of brain activity happening in response to that artwork, that is
Gonna be
an artist's greatest takeaway is to know that people are thinking about your artwork.
yeah. How can combining interactive installations and social justice art engage viewers and make space for youth and student voice and learning?
That is really challenging, but it's this beautiful intersection that can happen where you start seeing people being exposed to contemporary art and saying to themselves, perhaps I can do something similar. Maybe I'm learning something about how this particular artist is sharing their voices. Social justice work is so fascinating when it enters the fine art world and
Yeah.
industry because sometimes their materials need to be different than like a master painter that you kind of think of when you think of like the Detroit Institute of Arts.
Yes.
That artwork said something totally different at that time, but these younger artists who are so concerned about social justice work, that work is going to speak the same language for as long as it's going to exist.
Yeah.
So I do think it's pretty powerful to marry the two. And It's not easy. I don't think that that's easy work for an artist to decide, "I'm going to maybe speak against the mainstream. I wanna say something maybe that's, contextual to different parts of the world."
Yep.
Um, for them to say, "You know what? This is my time to share." I think it's really powerful to not shy away from something. Of
Yeah.
course, anyone out there might think, well, I think art should be something beautiful to look at. I think it can be a mixture of both, especially with social justice artwork. You might look at something that can be a little troubling and a little
Yeah.
challenging to look at. Um, but yeah, using those platforms to get youngsters to think about what they want their artwork to say, it's just the best experience. Um, some artworks don't have a purpose at all, and that's okay too. But when someone's able to say something about their world and make it current, I just think that that's a beautiful thing.
I do too. What is the importance of creating and conceptualizing detailed youth workshops that are educational and fun? And what is your end goal when creating these workshops?
This is my favorite challenge. I want youngsters to know that they can find a safe environment to explore the arts in a museum or gallery setting. Um, I try to meet everyone where they're at. I don't want someone to come to a workshop and say, "Oh, that was really challenging because I've never used this technique before." I want everyone to be exploring the same activity at the same time and have people learn from one another. So what I love is to situate the space where people can see each other. I often do a U shape of tables or
Yes.
perhaps a circle. Um, and what I love is those moments where people are looking at each other's artwork. So I have an inviting in experience, an inviting spot. Um, no intimidation as far as techniques go or whatever type of activity we might be working on. And I want, if older folks join, I want it to feel reminiscent for them. Maybe it's been a while since they've been able to experiment with uh,
Yeah.
simple materials like making a collage, for example. So, yeah, there are lots of things that I try to think about when I'm planning a workshop. I want everyone to feel invited and welcome. I want them to maybe even learn a new technique, but I don't want it to be too challenging that someone might say, "You know what? This isn't for me. I have to go."
Yeah.
Um, and I try to think about duration. How long should a person spend on a particular project? Anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour? That is what I'm trying to plan. It needs to be as loose and uncomplicated, and I
Yes.
feel like when you're just handing over materials and letting people play, that's when the magic
Yeah.
starts to happen. You can see the little gears clicking. So for instance, just this last weekend, we had a button maker there, and people were able to create their own little artworks that they could then pin to themselves or
I love
gift to
that.
someone. It was a very short activity, but people kept on making more and more collages. And I was making buttons with folks for 5 hours. So there's so much
Great.
that goes in planning the youth workshops. But
Yeah.
again, for me, the parameters that I work within are making people feel included and welcomed, and then having an art activity that is easily satisfactory, if that makes sense.
It does. Yes. So, people building personal connections with art is really important and provides the individual or audience with the chance to self reflect, like we talked about. What is your perspective on the relationship between art and people?
It's a big one. They've always gone in tandem since the beginning of time with, a lot of art only being shown in community spaces like churches and whatnot. Um, but I don't think there can be art without audience. Um, so it is an interesting dynamic because you need people to talk about your artwork in order for it to exist and have other
Yes.
people want to show it. Um, but I like this question. Um, it's not one that's easy to answer. Um, but I think it's a moment where people can learn about themselves. You know, I early on, many years ago, I was doing some research on Kehinde Wiley, and he
I
said
love him.
that his mom would always take him to museums, and they rarely saw people who look like them. Now I feel like you can go into a museum and see people of color look right back at you from a frame,
It's a
um,
reflection.
a reflection.
Reflection.
And I think that there's been a lot more activity showing Asian artists. So I'm just really grateful to be in a space where we're seeing a lot of different heritages being presented, different viewpoints, different skin tones. It's really phenomenal to go into a space like MoCAD and see people of all different shades. Um, there are many times when I was an educator at Detroit Institute of Arts, and some kids would respond, "Well, how come we don't see people of different ethnic backgrounds in particular galleries when we're walking through European or American?"
Mhm.
So that definitely needed to shift in those spaces many, many years ago. They're still, breaking down a lot of those old European masterpieces.
Yep.
There's a lot of work that needs to happen within those spaces because it's not like people of color didn't exist back then. It
No.
was just thinking about portraiture, how to make money back then,
Yep.
and these were objects of
Yeah.
high
Through a white
value.
lens.
Yeah, but I don't think that needs to exist anymore.
Nope. Me
That
either.
hierarchy doesn't need to exist, and I think it's a lot better for me to be in a space where I'm seeing a lot of diversity in the artwork that
Yes,
I work with.
I agree. So, what are like your top favorite experiences? Like your top favorite youth workshops and like anything where like you worked with like art and other students or just other people that made you like self-reflect.
I've had so many fantastic workshops at MoCAD. Again, if you've never been, you definitely have to come and check us out. There was one that I put together a few summers ago with Lakila Brown. Lakila is from Detroit. However, she's based in New York. She's also an educator out there. But I was able to take one little aspect of her art practice and create a whole workshop from that. So she works in plaster, which maybe not a lot of folks have experience working with it. It's something that changes the second you add some water to it, and then it goes through this little chemical heating phase until it hardens. So what we did was I was going around town, going to recycling centers and trying to get little jewelry boxes, like the little cardboard ones.
Mhm.
And then what we did was we made up batches of plaster, poured it into the boxes, and then we embedded little objects. I was going through like estate sales, and I go to this fantastic place called um, Scraps, Arts and Scraps.
Mhm.
And so I was just getting like little buttons, little textural things, little toys, even just something that someone could embed in the plaster. And
Yeah.
then once it dried and set, we plucked it all out. We plucked out all of the objects, and we even uh, cut away the box because the box lid was just like cardboard. And
Yeah.
that left you with this beautiful a kind of blank canvas, but you can see the impressions. All of the impressions were recognizable. So that was just a really fun one to be able to take a person through Lakila's art practice in a short period of time was really great to see. And everyone had a lot of fun picking out what they were going to make an imprint of. It was just challenging enough, but
Yeah,
pretty much everyone's projects was turning out pretty good. So I was very happy with that. Um,
that's
so
great.
yeah, I that I would say is my favorite part of the job, conceptualizing how I can connect someone with someone's art practice.
I love that. So, this is our last question. What do you hope to see in the future in terms of art, youth, and education?
Um, I think that it's fascinating that so many kids view art as something that maybe they can't pursue, or maybe it's not something that needs to be in their daily life. But I will tell you something like drawing, maybe journaling, that could be an art form. Doing something creative, no matter what your avenue is, no matter what your career path is, it's going to help. Imagine if you were going through med school, maybe you didn't give yourself a creative outlook or a creative output. Um, Maybe that would stifle you in your studies, you know?
Yeah,
So for me, I want young people to realize, well, you don't have to be this full-time artist. Maybe if there's something that you like, maybe it's anime, maybe it's making little ceramic animals. It could be something simple, but if you bring it into your daily life and don't let go of your um, the creative sides of you that kind of come out when you're a kid, it is going to help you in life, no matter what your trajectory is.
yes.
Um, it can be something as big as, oh, you make paintings on the weekends when you have some free time, or it could be something that you do daily. Maybe you want to make your food look beautiful. So yeah, I don't think it needs to be seen as this daunting sort of thing that you can only do if you're pursuing it as a full-time job. I think people, the everyday person, can incorporate a lot of art practices in their daily life.
Yes. Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciated this episode, and I'm really thankful that I was able to interview you.
Thank you so much. I loved your questions.
Thank
They
you.
were very thought-provoking,
Thank you.
and, I guess just the biggest takeaway is there are many ways to be creative, there are many ways to be an artist, but not everything needs to be so defined.
That is
You
so true.
can you can make it what it is to you. You could share it if you want with others, but even if you just do something on your personal free time, that's all right too.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone. Thank you for watching and tuning in, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank you.
Naomi.